Michael Nagy here with Jiggy Jag TV and DiscoveringBands.com. And for everyone watching, if you share this video on my channel and help support the awesome bands I feature. And today I'm here with Derision Cult. How you doing today?
Good, man. How are you, Michael?
Good, good. Great to have you on.
Thanks. We're hot and humid here in Chicago, but getting by.
Now, I want to start off and give us a little history about the band for anyone who's not familiar with you guys.
Yeah, man. So, Derision Cult's a solo project with me and a couple co-conspirators that keep me in line. But started it about 7 years ago, and prior to that, I was really in bands. I grew up kind of in the Iowa metal scene. Like Slipknot, Mike Gabe from Microwaves, a buddy of mine from way back then. Had like just a 10-year hiatus, 15-year hiatus career, stuff like that. Got back in, and I always miss music. I always miss creating. Really got inspired by the Chicago scene and some of the people here, how productive they are. And yeah, got back into it. For me, it was kind of a, at the time, my wife was pregnant with our daughter, and I'm kind of a night owl, and anybody out there who's had kids or had a wife who's had kids tend to go to bed early and stuff. So I needed things to do at night, and that, as simple as it sounds, is kind of how I got into it. But over time, it's become a really important outlet to say some things that I want to kind of get out there. And so that's kind of where we're at now. But I have an album coming out on September 14th called I need to pronounce it right. Charlatans Inc. And really excited about that. I think there's a lot of things that are kind of a culmination and evolution of a lot of what we've done. And so I'm really proud about that. So yeah, the project, industrial metal, I would say the primary influences for me, obviously things like Ministry. A lot of what's happened with the Wax Trax artists are really important to me. Sister Machine Gun, Thrill Kill Cult, folks like that. So yeah, that's what we're doing here.
Awesome. So you basically feel more creative at night then, right?
Yeah. And in fact, this room, there's no windows here. So, I'm busy during the day and then at night, and man, sometimes sun come up and you won't even know it in here. But and it's funny too, because my wife is like, she'll get up at like 5 in the morning on like clockwork, and so she's super early, and I'm one of those people that right when I think about going to bed, that's start having ideas and brainstorms and stuff. So I found that about myself, and it's something I've kind of come to accept.
Yeah, I'm like the same way. I end up just waking up at night.
Well, it's funny too, because especially when you have kids, kind of your options of sleeping in till noon are kind of over. So I might be up with some cool ideas till 4 a.m., but that doesn't mean that pancake's got to get made at 7 in the morning. So such is life, right?
Yeah. Now, you said you have done this project for like 7 years now. It looks like on Bandcamp you have a lot of releases for 7 years.
Yeah. I think, and I'm getting a little better at that. I think early on I did a lot of EPs, right? Like I do like 3 things, put it out, and I do like 2 of those a year. And after a while, that starts adding up. But as time goes on, I think I've really nailed working on like real themes. Like, what is it I want to say in this project? And that takes a while. And I think also, I'm doing spending a lot more time with the tracks now. Whereas early on, I think I was a lot more, I suppose, kind of the punk rocker in me was, 1, 2, 3, go, 1, 2, 3, go. And doing a lot more editing. So I'm over the last like couple of years, I've really slowed down, but I think, quality goes up, and I'm spending a lot more time, I think, kind of what is it we really want to say this time, so a lot early on, but I think, as time goes on, things are getting a little more, for me, I'll take a year to work on a project, take it 6 months to promote it, is about my schedule.
So about how much time now are you spending on each track, would you say?
With Charlatans, this album coming out, got it right here. I really started on this in earnest probably in May of last year. And the way I work is I don't necessarily work on track by track. I'll pull together pieces of songs. It's, for me, making an album's kind of like making head cheese, you put it all in and scrape off what comes off the top, and that's it. But I did a lot of just coming down here and just really bashing out riffs and, getting aggressive with things. COVID for me was, the pandemic, the lockdowns really kind of wiped out my business and income. And that's a really stressful thing, and I'm sure a lot of people have gone through that and know what that's like. And I don't have a heavy bag or anything to box, around here. So when I need to take out aggression, I get a guitar and just play a lot of really heavy riffs. And I spent a lot of last summer doing that. And probably around the fall is when, okay, let's take these things and start figuring out where songs are. And that was really, really cathartic for me. I highly encourage anybody who's going through a tough time, crank music, play really loud, be really aggressive, and it's awesome for stress. So I think this is probably a year and 3-4 months of work to pull these together. But in terms of, kind of any one song, they all kind of blend together for me. I'll work on something and we'll let it sit for a while and come back to it like 3 months later. And then, it starts to kind of reveal itself, and, I work on things that way. So I don't really work song to song.
Now, for the new album coming out, can you give us some more information on maybe the themes of the album and what inspired it?
Yeah. So it's the album itself. It's called Charlatans Inc. And my background is, and what I really wanted to talk about is, I spent a pretty long career in the advertising industry, and I love it. And it's a great career. I still do it. I'm still, heavily involved. But I really wanted to, I noticed in the last couple years, one of the things that I think is important to talk about is brands and kind of getting messaging out there. As things have kind of got more tribal in America, people have certain factions and things like that. Well, that can be commercialized and you can monetize that. And, what I'm seeing happen is that if I can piss you off and you're somebody that these guys over here really don't, okay, if you're mad, you make a bunch of noise and you're mad at my product, these people over here are going to buy it more. And so this has been happening in marketing, and it's happening in advertising and in the media. And people are getting madder and madder. I think too, a really kind of watershed moment for me was I didn't work directly on it, but I was pretty involved in that Nike campaign where they signed Colin Kaepernick to be the spokesperson for the 30th anniversary. And I was involved in a little bit in the data and the focus groups and what went into bringing that together. And we knew that early on, the people that were going to likely buy Nike shoes in the future tended to be more, 20 to 35, urban, trended liberal. Their feelings about, corporate social responsibility and, these are things that are really important to them, which is a little different than maybe the generation prior. So we very, very deliberately signed Colin to be with the intention of he's going to piss people off. And they're going to rant and rave and burn the shoes on, Twitter and make all this noise. Well, that would cause this group to almost kind of like Nike even more. And, not wading into the political issues or anything, but that dynamic of let's really poke the bear and poke these people, get them mad so these people buy more shoes. And that struck me as that's a lot different than like maybe when you and I grew up, when I try to convince you that you're going to get the girl if you drink this kind of beer. You're going to seem more European if you use this kind of dishwashing detergent. It's a very different thing. Now brands are starting to let me, we're actively kind of pushing buttons and things like that. And, you know, that's kind of the world we're going to live in. It's the world my kids are going to grow up in. And I really wanted to comment on that with this album, that, you know, we have to be mindful of these things. We have to be mindful that, you know, the media, you know, a lot of this stuff doesn't necessarily want you to think. They want you to feel. They want you to get mad. And I think if we're aware of that, it's kind of like being able to see the seams or understand the tricks that the magician's doing. You're less susceptible to it. So that's a big theme on this album. And Charlatan Zinc for me is kind of like, we picked that title, and we picked, you know, I worked with an artist on the album art, kind of around this idea that, you know, I'm not saying that any of these brands are bad people, but kind of there's a bit of a charlatan, a bit of a sleight of hand going on here, and that's kind of where the theme comes from.
It's interesting that you say that, because everybody seems so divided lately, and like you said, mad and drama everywhere.
Yeah, and it's interesting because, you know, I'm really trying to be careful to stay away from politics, because that's not what I want to talk about, you know. And there's people way better at that than me. But I did, you know, the last track on the album is kind of about what I believe was, you know, where does this all lead to? Well, January 6th is a good example of that. You know, that anger and hostility, some disinformation. That's a very real consequence of what happens when you sit there and stoke people. You know, they get irrational, and that irrationality can get a little beyond flaming people on Twitter. You know, they can have very real world consequences. But yeah, you know, people are, you know, we used to have a saying in the ad, you know, in when I was in the agency world, enragement equals engagement. You know, I don't know if you remember, but when Sinead O'Connor tore up that picture of the Pope on Saturday Night Live, and, you know, I know some of the people that were producers on the show at that time, they loved that when that happened, because when the Catholic Church freaked out and everything, double the numbers the next week of people watching Saturday Night Live when the next host was on. And, you know, I think when you have people divided and, you know, just kind of the political climate, there are people that want that. There's people that make money on that. And that's something I think is important for people to be aware of, because it's, we just get so much more information at us. I just did a presentation for something else a couple weeks ago, and, the amount of information and data you create about yourself in a single day today is what people in like 1940 did in their entire life. You know, just think about that, and like what that, you know, how I can use that to target you differently. And you think about how much screen time we spend. So it's really, really important that we're able to distinguish between what's just trying to get a rise out of us versus what's actually, you know, trying to inform us.
Yeah, there's so much information out there. Sometimes it's hard to decipher what's actually fact and not, you know.
Yeah. And, you know, I think some of it, you know, with the information thing, I think it's important to understand the intention of some of this stuff. One of the things, I was approached last year to help a gun manufacturer market an AR-15 for kids. And now that sounds crazy, I think, when you first hear it. The reality was that was a gun that, you know, they'd gotten a patent on a trigger. That one of the most common accidents happens when, like, grandpa's teaching his kid how to hunt, is that trigger will go off or the gun will fire when they didn't mean to. And that's when, you know, well, they had a patent on this thing that made it safe. Now, the gunman, the company in question, that wasn't what they wanted to put out in the market. What they wanted, and they asked me to help with them, was you've got to get it out there that there's this AR-15 for kids. And we need that to get leaked to the Daily Show. We need, you know, because when these people lose their minds about these idiots making this gun for kids, we're going to sell more guns, because that's going to provoke a reaction from, you know, gun rights advocates. And they're going to, so if I was kind of sitting in the middle of that, what I would tell people is, before you go and, you know, freak out on, you know, Facebook or whatever, just know you might be part of a plan, you know, to cause kind of the opposite of what you intended to have happen. And that's pretty sophisticated marketing, but those are things that are happening. So that was that's a big theme on the album too. But I think those stories are, I don't think there's going to be less of that. I think there's going to be more. And remember, regardless of what your belief is, when you get mad, you become kind of useful in a different way if you're somebody who's really vocal and stuff like that. So that's why it's really important to think about what's the intention of this and kind of dig deeper.
Yeah, you can see everyone in the world just becoming enraged. A protest everywhere, like you said, everybody is all.
Yeah, it's funny too, because like I don't think that I've never met anybody who I think everyone it's not that people's intentions are bad or that the spirit of a lot of the protests last year. I obviously destroying people's property and stuff. Like, I don't care what your opinion is. That's not cool. But, it's funny how, like, good intentions, what's that old saying? The road to hell is paved with good intentions. I think, now we live in a world where, I could take advantage of your good intentions to do something that maybe you didn't intend. And that's, I think that's it's easier to do that now than it's probably ever been. And, I think that's really important.
Now, with the album coming out soon, do you have any plans to play live?
Not at the moment, but, I swear it's like never say never. I have an acoustic project I do some things with. I don't necessarily play Derision Cult. That's my chance to pay homage to guys like Tom T. Hall, who just passed away. But right now, it's something that kind of crosses my mind whenever there's a release. Like, man, I should put a band together. I'll probably kind of wait and see till next year to really think about things like that. Just because, I have a lot of friends who are, shows are getting canceled and stuff, and I'd just rather focus on kind of getting the message out, digitally right now than playing live. But it's something I think about. I definitely enjoyed it back in the day for sure. And
you're involved with another project called the Purgatory Line, right? So tell us a little about that one.
Yeah, so that's a whole lot of fun. I collaborate with a guy named Matt Kettman, who is actually a doctor, and he's the total most rockin' doctor you've ever seen in your life. But, you can buy your albums at his practice. But we were in bands, like 20 years ago. And he and I reconnected over the course of the last year. Just kind of one of those things. I was just kind of curious what he was up to and checked in on him. And he still had a few things going. And, I had some tracks laying around that, they didn't really fit Derision Cult. And I didn't really know what to do with them. So I hey, man, would you be interested in singing on these? And one thing led to another. And we started working remotely. Matt lives in Iowa. I live in Chicago. And just kind of passing tracks back and forth. And I really, really enjoyed that. But Purgatory Line is our sort of, it's kind of more of a stoner metal, 90s rock vibe. We pay a lot of homage to, influences like Soundgarden and Alice in Chains with that, which was a whole lot of fun. It's like being a teenager again. So I did that. The other thing with Purgatory Line that we're doing, and this is kind of part of a larger project, is Matt does a lot of medical missions down to Haiti, and we're building a school down there. There's an area called, it's about 4 hours kind of on the other side of the island from Port-au-Prince, and it's extremely underserved. And Matt's been doing missions down there, and our goal is to build a school that's going to allow us to serve 3 meals a day to 400 students, K through 12, and obviously provide a top-notch education. We've got the land bought. We've got a head teacher. We've got 4 kind of staff right now. But all the money we make, all the proceeds from Purgatory Line go to funding that project. And, especially with that assassination that happened about a month ago, That's made it a little difficult to move forward on things just from, logistically shipping stuff from Port-au-Prince to where the school is. But we're still making progress. Things are still getting built. We're seeing, we've got the foundation laid and all that. Right now, the school it literally takes place in like a shack with a, hole. But we're getting there. We're working on getting supplies and all that. So there's a really kind of another cause associated with Purgatory Line.
Wow, sounds like you're involved in a lot of projects.
Yeah, for me, I'm not like a big sports ball guy. I don't watch football or anything, or which I know is sacrilege being from Chicago. But other than my family, it's kind of this and my work. So I'm pretty myopic about my time, being how I devote what I do every day. I don't really, I quit drinking this last year, and so that's allowed me to really focus on, the stuff that matters. And it's funny because I think as that happened, I think I take more time with things than I do less. But yeah, for me, I don't spend a lot of time watching TV or anything, or playing video games or anything. It's kind of this family and work for me.
Now, with both projects, Derision Cult and Purgatory Line, how do you balance your time? Do you work on each one separately, or do you work on them both at kind of the same time? Or?
Yeah, kind of both at the same time. Like right now, with the Derision Cult album and, doing a lot of the promotion for it, that takes a lot of time. But when we're just creating stuff, what's really cool about Purgatory Line is, it's kind of like a break, and sometimes just kind of getting away from something, kind of helps you be more inspired. So if I'm feeling kind of burnt on, industrial metal stuff, okay, work on this for a little bit, recharge. So I work on, in terms of creating the stuff, I like to work on things together just because of that. It's a good way to kind of give your brain a break, turn off the industrial metal and turn on the early 90s hard rock,
Yeah, I like how each project sounds completely different. It's like a whole different outlet.
Oh, thanks, man. And I think what's cool about with Purgatory Line is Matt's actually like a good singer, like he's and I'm more of kind of, I can yell and bellow and all that. And, it allows you to create in different ways. Cause whenever I'm writing riffs with Matt, I always think about, okay, how's he going to sing this? And how could this, complement what he does? Whereas, it's kind of a one-man show at Derision Cult. So it kind of forces me to work in a different way when I'm working with Matt. So I think that's kind of why that happens. But it's a lot of fun. It's a lot, and interestingly, I hadn't really collaborated with people creatively for a long, long time. And doing that with him, I really, really enjoyed that. And Matt doesn't just kind of show up and sing on things. He has a lot of really good arrangement ideas and all that. And so, that process of kind of getting different input, I'm finding I enjoy that. So I'm doing more collaboration stuff. I have a Sys machine, which is sort of my electronic project that is kind of like, to date, it's been sort of like if I have loops or something that are kind of interesting that I was using to learn how to use a certain synth or whatever, I'll put it on those projects. But we're working on with Microwaved and Bow Ever Down. We've collaborated and created a few different songs. I'm working on remixes for that. And that's kind of going on in the background right now. And that's been a ton of fun. I really love hearing, the way I hear things and the voice I hear and how a certain riff might reveal itself to me. Could be very, very different than how you might hear it. And just kind of like how you might interpret or add something to it will change how I hear it, and I love those kind of interplays and things like that. So I'd like to do more of that kind of stuff in the future.
Awesome. Do you have some artists you might want to work with and collaborate with in the future?
Man, that's a good question. I really enjoy the folks I work with now. I really, when I think about these different projects, with Derision Cult, it'd be really cool to work with producers that are a little more electronic, because I think I bring, you can see all the guitars. That's sort of where my heart is. But I think electronic artists, especially now, the way producers hear, they kind of hear things a little like more kind of wider, if that makes sense, like different noises, different, the arrangements and the layers and stuff that they'll put into things, I think are things that I could learn from, or things that, I don't necessarily think I bring to the table. So when I think of artists like that, I think like V&V Nation. I think the guys in Go Fight, like what Jim Marcus is doing, he's one of my, I think he just does a fantastic job of making things sound huge without like bombarding you with signal. So guys like that, I think, would be really fun. So if I had my druthers and it was like money was no object and all that kind of thing, I think it'd be awesome to do, I'm sure everyone says this, but when I think about like what 9 Inch Nails is doing now and, kind of really minimal type stuff, I think that'd be really fun to work with people that are good at that,
Cool. Now, for both the bands, Derision Cult and Purgatory Line, how do people find your music on social media, look you up online?
Yeah, well, you can find both those on Bandcamp, derisioncult.bandcamp.com, purgatoryline.bandcamp. I'm on Facebook. That's probably where I'm the most active on social media, because I'm an old guy. And that's I'm starting to get hip to Twitch, I'm sorry. But there, and then I have a website that is sort of kind of what I do all my publishing with. That's called southstreetdungeon.com, which is sort of my joke name for this room I'm in. But if you go there, I have my blog there, kind of what I'm up to, and then the projects I'm involved in and the discography. But I think I really enjoy Bandcamp. I think the social aspect, and they just make things super easy, and so that's my prop to Bandcamp.
I know you got the new Derision Cult album coming out. What else do you have coming up in the future?
Yeah, well, the that Sis Machine album I mentioned, I'm kind of put feelers out for remixers now. We've got about 7 tracks done for that. That would be awesome if we could have that, to share with people by the end of the year. I think, it's, especially Kim from Bow Over Down did a fantastic, just really dark lyrics, which it's a very dark electronic thing. So perfect winter music, right? So that'd be fun to have out. Matt and I have a few ideas we're starting to kick around for another Purgatory Line album. That's probably about as far out. And I would say probably next year we'll have another one of those. Derision Cult, I have some riffs laying around and stuff, but I haven't really started thinking about the next step for that. So the immediate thing will be that Sis Machine album. And that should be pretty cool.
Awesome. Yeah, Kim from Bow Over Down seems really into collaborations lately.
Yeah. Well, she's been one of the things about Kim I think is so cool is she's just how hard she works, I mean, she's on the channels a lot. When she collaborates, it's not like you send her a track and maybe in 3 months it'll come back, I mean, she's really on it, and I've heard that from other people she collaborates with, and that's super inspiring to me. People that are just getting a lot done, and it's not like, she lives in a bubble. She's got a family and all that. So, I know what that's like, having to balance everything. And, but yeah, she's way into collaborations. She really gets after it. She's a total go-getter. And I think people like that are, just awesome. They're awesome to work with, and they kind of pump me up, make me want to work harder, Yeah,
the collaborations are great for artists to help spread the word, working with each other. And it really helps, I think, get the word out about all different artists. Yeah.
And the thing about it is, I think, and it's funny you say that, because I never really thought about it that way. Like, hey, there's a which is funny given what I've done in my life. But you know, there is a real promotional aspect to it, and you know, I never really thought about it. I just thought, oh, we'll make this cool thing together and then we'll figure it out. But you're absolutely right. Especially in kind of the dark wave and electronic communities, that's kind of how that's a really good way to promote music. And it's what I really like about it is it's so altruistic, right? Like this is the creativity itself becomes the promotional vehicle, you know, versus, you know, kind of slapping ads on stuff. You know, it's like people actually working together and discovering music by, you know, creating something new that, you know, the two parts separate wouldn't have done otherwise. I think that's awesome. But yeah, no, I think nowadays, especially you know, what's interesting is, you know, because we just went through this lockdown where, you know, a lot of us couldn't meet in person, and it forced us to do things like what you and I are doing on Zoom. I don't know that like 2 years ago I necessarily would have collaborated with Kim. I just wouldn't have thought about that. Like, well, she's not here in Chicago, I can't, you know, or Matt, you know, in Purgatory Line. So I wonder if one of the positives that'll come out of a pandemic is, are we going to see just people being a lot more comfortable collaborating around the world and finding new ways to do that? I know I definitely did, you know, over the pandemic. So I'm kind of, you know, to your point about collaborations being a big thing, I'm sort of hopeful that that'll become more commonplace coming out of this.
Yeah, even for me, I started off doing all my interviews in person, and I switched to Skype because of the pandemic, and it's allowed me to talk to artists from all over the world I wouldn't have been able to talk to.
Yeah. Do you find when you're doing that, do you find that is it getting easier? Like when I first started having to do things via Zoom, there was all these awkward, you know, dog starts barking or whatever, or, you know, people not knowing how to work technology. But are you finding that, and there was always that, oh, it's never the same being in the same room. Because you talk to people, you talk to everybody. Are you finding it's getting easier? Or?
Well, I get almost more requests from bands that I can even keep up with, but I like the in-person vibes a lot better.
Yeah.
It's a little more back and forth, talking with the microphone. We're here on Skype, I guess everyone's just chill, sitting at home. The answers are more elaborate. So it's a different vibe, but the only thing with Skype, sometimes internet connections can be rough with technology.
Yeah.
Otherwise, like I said, it's neat to talk to people who are far away, who I wouldn't get to talk with, but I think I like the in-person more just to feel that human connection.
Yeah. That's a good point. I think too with Skype or Zoom or whatever, you know, maybe I think especially at first when everyone had to start doing this, it's a different kind of I mean, it's just a different format than like if you and me were sitting at a coffee shop or something, you know. But it's funny though, because I think like over time people are starting to get more kind of like their personality and who they really are seems to be coming out more. But I think one of the things I've really enjoyed is you kind of get a sense of when you. Now, I don't mean this like in like a stalker way, but like, yeah, I've been on all these Zoom calls for work and stuff like that, and you kind of get a sense of who people are a little more when you see, oh, that's what their kitchen's like, or that's, you know. But I don't know. I guess, you know, I feel like I've been, you know, I work from home, so I don't get out and meet people much these days, but suppose that's my way of saying I'm kind of starting to just accept this as reality. But yeah, I hear you.
So yeah, for now I plan to now do both type interviews where I'm going to do the in-person and the Skype. This way I have both best worlds. I can still talk to bands in person and talk to them far away.
Well, what's cool too for you is you know, all the bands you work with are having to do stuff like this, so you probably don't run into people, and maybe you did early on when things locked down, but you probably don't run into people that aren't used to doing this by now, you know? So it's just, I would think that like, it's not only, you know, yeah, you kind of have to because of, you know, tech, but like all the artists that you're talking to are more comfortable with this medium now. So that allows you to do a lot more too. But yeah, it's a different world, man.
Surprisingly, a lot of the artists and bands I've talked with, it's their first time ever using Skype.
Is that, you know what? It's funny you say that. This is my first time too. But because I'm usually a Zoom or WebEx guy, or using Google Hangout. But I actually did marketing for Skype when they came out, so I can say this now because it's been a while. But yeah, when I was actually when Microsoft bought them, I was part of doing that branding campaign and was never using Skype. We were doing WebEx, which seems incredibly off-brand to meet with Microsoft about their conferencing software using WebEx, but that's what we did.
Well, if you ever come toward the East Coast here, we'll meet up and do an in-person interview.
Yeah, man, for sure. You're in Jersey, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, I used to spend a ton of time in New York, and I have a ton of friends there, and I'm really wanting to get back. I love that area, and I love all the people there, and there's a cool scene there musically too. But when I do get out east, it'll be fun because I've never really done the tourist stuff. Like when I go, it's for work or partying or whatever. But I have a 7-year-old daughter and never been to like the Statue of Liberty or done the Empire State Building or any of that. So I think maybe when I do go next time, I'll actually do all the stuff you're supposed to see.
Yeah, there's a lot of sites here. The scene's really good. You got Philadelphia, which is a great industrial scene, and you got New York, North Jersey. It's a lot in this area.
Yeah, that's what I love about your part of the country, because like where I live, like Philadelphia, you can take a train from, like I worked with people that commuted, lower Manhattan, and they lived in Philadelphia or lived in Connecticut or whatever. And it gets, the further west you go, the more it's like, well, that's an 8-hour drive, to go wherever. So you're right. That is cool. You have all these big areas, and they all have kind of their own personalities, but that is one thing I love about being out east. But
how's your area, Chicago? How did a lot of places survive the pandemic, or did a lot of places have to shut down?
For live venues, it seems like things, it was a struggle, and a lot of places like, the Metro ran a lot of programs and stuff, but it seems like at least for there's some issues. The Exit's kind of a big club for, the industrial punk roots. They've had some issues, but I don't think that's necessarily COVID related. I actually live just outside of the city, just west. But for the most part, it seemed like it was going to be a lot worse than it is, than it is right now, is probably how I'd describe it. I think for the most part, yeah, stuff's kind of hanging in. There's a bunch of things going on at Reggie's. That's kind of like our big metal spot downtown. I don't think the Metro is having shows yet. That's kind of a legendary Chicago venue. So we'll see. I know we just, we're back to the mask mandate, which we got through Lollapalooza, and that was kind of Riot Fest. I know some bands have had to drop off that and change, but we'll see, man. I think my heart goes out to people running clubs and stuff, because I know what that's like to see income levels drop and figure out how you're gonna make ends meet and all that. But I hope they all hang in there.
Yeah, I went to Club Neo back in the day. That was an awesome club in Chicago.
What's funny is I think that's a daycare center now. Yeah, you got to go back in the alley in the back. Yeah, I've spent a lot of time at Neo, man. That's a cool spot. It's it's a 4 or 5 a.m. place too, so you can go there, and I kind of hazily remember things, but no, Neo is awesome, man. It was a shame when they closed it, but God, that went on for that was there for like 30 years. So, you know, to keep a club like that running as long as it did when the neighborhood all changed around it and changed back again and everything, you know, good for them. But yeah, a lot of good times at Neo. I'm sure a lot of people who in the Chicago area have spent plenty of time there.
Yeah. Well, hopefully I'll make it back out there sometime.
Yeah, right on, for sure. Hopefully we'll you know, like I think you know, venues are still going. Looks like Cold Waves is happening this year, so you know, definitely cool. You know, we're keeping the light on for sure for the scene.
Yeah, well, I look forward to what you have coming up in the future and everything. And it was great having you and talking with you. And everybody, look him up.
Thanks a lot, man. Thanks, everybody.
Yeah, and for everyone watching, I've linked his music in the video description, so check that out.
Thanks a lot.